I always have to dance, Steve. I always have to dance.
It's cool. I love that. I've seen the show before, but I've never seen the open. That's neat.
Yeah, it's my little fun Tisha Marie intro that I do before all the
Cartoonish
lives.
play stage.
Cartoon, play. Well, everybody, you are tuning in. It's another Tisha Talks live at 4:45, and I have my good friend Steve Rix on. He is the CEO of Imagine That. I've actually had Steve on my podcast. Steve, you were actually my finale, like my season finale before
I
COVID.
know. That was exciting. And that seems like so long ago, right? It's
I know.
crazy. However,
I'm
now we're both
actually,
CEOs, chief experience officers. It's all
yes,
about the ride,
yeah,
not running the
I
business. It's
know.
the ride.
I know it's the ride, and I had to
Yeah.
take a play from Steve because I'm like chief experience. That's what I do. I give the
Yeah,
experience. So,
it's true. You
Steve,
do.
thank you for that little nugget. I was like, I'm taking it. I'll give you the credit. I'm taking this, Steve. So, thank you everybody for those of you who will be tuning in or watching the replay. Quick housekeeping announcements. You can always say hello to me and Steve. Tell us where you're from, where you're joining us from, and if you have questions throughout this live broadcast or even through the replay, make sure to just post those comments and we will be watching those and
For
answering
sure.
real time and then going back to the replay so we can also check back in with you. But so good to have Steve here. As I mentioned, he was one of my podcast guests on my Success Over Struggle podcast. We met through the House of Genius here in Phoenix, and you'll have to listen to the podcast. I think we even shared
Yeah, we
how
did.
just so much of a hot mess I was that day. And
I was going
Steve's
to use
like,
the
"You
word disheveled.
were great. Yeah, you're like, you lit up the room." I'm like, "I
You
did."
did. You did. In a kind of hot mess way, but it was awesome.
Hot mess.
It was great. I loved it.
So
Uh,
I love what Steve is about. Like, this is like a giant kid sitting in front of me.
it's
Like, he is
true.
all about the play. He's all about how play saves the day. So this is going to be a really fun segment. He's going to bring in some, some different tips and tools and all that fun stuff. And we're just going to have a casual conversation about this. So
Hmm.
let's get started with this. Steve, how do you define play? Like, first of all, I want to hear from you. How do you define play specifically?
Well, I guess the technically correct answer was, what does Webster say? And in my head I said, who cares? Because part of what makes play is it's disassociated to anything else. When I'm in a state of play, I'm lost in this space that's selfless, it's timeless, it's effortless, and it's richness. It's like, I remember when my son was like 3 years old, he used to play with his spaghetti. Boy, I'm glad he's not a LinkedIn guy. If he heard this, he'd be like, "Dad, shut up." But like, he would play with his spaghetti, and like, eating it was an adventure for him. And so I think my ex actually saved the videotape. If I can ever find it, I'm going to out him and put it on like a social media. He had to have a second plate. And he used to love marinara sauce until this night when he literally fell asleep in his high chair playing with his spaghetti, and he's never liked marinara much since. But here's the point. Play is that state of being that so self-absorbs me in the moment that the world could be falling around all around me, and I'm just happy as can be. I'll give you one other example. There was an old Nicolas Cage movie, and that's easy to say because he's got a ton of movies, right? But
Yes.
Nicolas Cage was in this movie called Con Air. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
And,
Con
and
Air.
remember that the airplane drops down into some desert. It gets stuck at the pickup point, and the character played by Steve Buscemi, this kind of psychotic guy who eats kids, right? Horrible concept. But he goes and sits down and has this cup of tea with this little girl who's playing with a raggedy Barbie doll, right? And of course, as watchers, we're like, please leave the girl alone, right? And of course, everything was fine. The girl waves as they leave in the plane later. But what's fascinating is, in a moment where a child should have been totally alarmed, that child had never been programmed to be alarmed. So she was disarmed, right? Play by its nature, it's just freedom. That's what play is.
Freedom.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the simplest sense.
So speaking of that, since we're going on this whole kid thing here, so how are we as adults, like when we think about resiliency, what is something that we can grasp or learn from our children? Because I know you were sharing this in the green room just before we went on, of a story with your daughter, and it could have gone two ways. It could have gone this way or this way. And I love the way you tell the story.
I now in this case, if she was here, she'd laugh and chuckle with us. My son, not so much, but kids, I love you. I didn't mean to out you, but like my daughter Ansley, who today is the executive producer of one of America's #1 television programs at 30 years old. She's brilliant. But at 2 years old, her mom and I said, you know, kids respond in like kind to the energy we give them, because before that, they don't know anything else to respond with. We were at my father's in South Carolina. Had fortunately they were at least carpeted, but she was in that toddler stage of learning how to walk and go downstairs. So Mama took her eye off of her just like a millisecond, and that millisecond allowed her to trip and stumble down the whole set of stairs. And I looked at her and she looked at me. We were both football fans, and in a moment we went touchdown. And my daughter says, again. So here's the point. Like when we respond with a spirit early with children that enables them to feel freely things that otherwise we might just be programmed to say, oh my gosh, are you okay? And start crying, and then they scream, and resiliency is about a couple things, but more than just being able to get tenacious, passionate, and get back up, and it's about having fun. Like I think about my life, and it's one, it's just one, pardon my French, but one glorious screw up after another. Like all of life is experiments. And like, well,
I'm raising my hand. I've been there. I've totally been there.
When we first met, I told you in this town, I live in Hawaii now for your guests, but like, while I've been visiting here, when we first met, I told you, yeah, this town's got some mines for me mentally, but I've turned all of them into trophies because like in 2006, 2007, I was 37, 38. I was on the verge. I was a millionaire. I was on the verge of retiring and having a whole bunch of money. We're going to take our companies public. And then this little thing called the mortgage crisis and the meltdown. And like 2 years later, I had $200 to my name, and I was living up in Greyhawk in somebody's casita, right? And I was like, well, that didn't work. Let's try something else, right? You know, when we look at life as an experiment, which is all playing is anyway, it changes the state of affairs for us mentally, and it takes away the guilt. It takes away the, it's another good phrase, takes away, this is very true in America. Some places other than, definitely Asia too. There's this performance culture that says I have to be to a certain level at a certain time with a certain bunch of things. I'm climbing this ladder that's driven by time, which is this man-made construct anyway. You know, one may have all sorts of different views about life and theology and God and spirit, but one thing's for sure, life keeps going, right? Like before a human came along, there was never a clock, but we're so driven by being certain places by certain times. And what play does, what resilience in its purest sense does, it gives us a chance to just hit the stop button, the timeout. Like, let's just enjoy the moment. So,
I am so happy that you said that, because you're right. So many of us are like, okay, I'm on this trajectory and I have to get there. And if I'm not there by this age, then I'm a total failure.
Yeah. Can I give you a vulnerability? Honest vulnerability, right? I got two amazing kids. They're adults. I love them. They're my best friends. My son and I are going to set out to sail around the world in 6 years when I turn 60. So there's my age, 54, right? I've had 2 divorces. I've lost $1 million twice in my life. And it's really easy to say, wow, by now I should have had a sweet lady next to me and be talking about grandkids, neither of which my kids want at this point, which is fine. Because I'm glad still playing father and still being son to my dad, right?
Yeah.
But this premise of like, oh, I'm all damaged goods, and like, no, you can't think that way. Like, you gotta be in the moment. And by the way, I've long since stopped having an issue with that, but that's because along the way I did the work, right?
Right.
And the work is actually so counterintuitive. I stopped working. I just played. And some people say, you can't play your way out of everything. I said, oh yeah? Watch me. 7 years ago, I started a company called Imagine That, which is my legacy. It's what I've been working on. It's how we met. And next year, we got some really cool things we're going to be doing with states of play, especially in the workplace. But I got to tell you, 7 years ago, when I said to people, well, what's your company all about? Well, I think imagination makes a big difference in people's lives. Well, yeah, that's all right. Okay, fair enough. Well, how are you going to do that? I'm going to teach them how to play. And they said, are you crazy? I was like, well, I am crazy, but that has nothing to do with my business idea, right? And so what's really cool today is that one of the largest bodies in the world, I kind of leave these off radar right now because they're still in final negotiations, but I'll just call it an international, globally recognized organization, is on the verge of sanctioning us to help support the problem in the workplace, which is unhappiness. That's a big deal. And in addition to that, there is a outlet, a very large outlet that I guess you'd call it a same thing. I just got to leave it off record for the moment, but we're just about there. But it's a place where you get to go watch lots of cool videos, right? So you can narrow it down. But they have asked us to create our own channel with 100 hours of edutaining material to teach people the power of play and imagination, and particularly as it applies to this premise of work, right?
Yeah.
And for some religions and some philosophies, work is considered the curse of sin for a man. Well, last time I checked, you're a woman, and
last time I checked, I am too.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And you're not like being cursed with giving birth and being a woman, right? So there's all these different ideas about what work is, the sweat of the brow. I'll tell you what work is. Work is being grumpy. Work is, being defensive. Work is being jealous. Work is being protective. That's work. Play, selflessness, ease, trust. That's not hard. That's fun. I've seen this quote a couple times this week. I can either, no, I should have saved it. I think it's on my phone, but I kind of agree and disagree, right? Like you can, relationships are hard. Divorce is hard. Financial security is hard. Insecurity is hard. Blah, 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 blah. Choose your hard. Well, I think I get the premise and I appreciate it, but I would say this. When I'm playing, there is a state of ease. It doesn't mean that it doesn't require effort, but play is restorative by its nature. It's why for the last year, I've been working 12, 16, sometimes 18-hour days. And yet of late, especially with a great diet and a little exercise, I'm feeling better and doing more. And I'm not burned out at the end of the day. I'm like, do I have to go to bed, Mom? And I'm like, oh, it's not me. I'm Mom, right?
Do I have to eat lunch and take a bathroom break?
Right. Can I keep going? Yeah. So
I was there today. I was like, I think I'm just going to eat a piece of turkey and call it a day. Yeah. So keep going.
Yeah. And, if you think about it, how many people really approach their life that way? And that is the problem with work-life balance, that we compartmentalize a being that's not supposed to be compartmentalized. I'm a one being. I don't take part of me some places and leave the other part in the trunk in other places, or, now, unfortunately, a lot of people do this, right? Whether it's through infidelity, whether it's through financial practices that are compromised, whether it's through gossip, we put parts of our business in some places and then we show up other ways. It's a lot of energy. That's work. I don't want to do it. I want to play. Like when you said a couple of days ago, hey, you want to go live with me 2 days ago? I was being a bit of a smart ass with you. I said, let me get back to you. Yes.
Because I kind of sense that. I'm just saying.
Right. It's just fun to be who you are. And when we can restore play to the workplace, well, maybe not even restore it, just get it there. Because let's go to our grandparents and our great-grandparents, something called the Great Depression, right? We don't ever want that to happen again, says our great-grandparents or grandparents. Most of our grandparents are probably passed. But we don't want that to happen again. So what do? We spit out a bunch of babies during the World War II. We call them baby boomers. And we say, now you go to work for 40 years and you save every dime and have some baseball, apple pie, and Chevrolet, and just kind of live a certain way, right?
Right.
And everything will be fine. Try to tell that to a millennial today, right? I mean, my kids are 27 and 30. As you know, I said it. One's in the movie business. She was a child actress. Now she's in production. My son, he spent some time there, but like he said to me the other day, he's like, do I have to go anywhere professionally? I started laughing. I said, no. He said, great, because this corporate ladder stuff, it's boring. I rather like go play shoots and ladders with life and just check things out and go around the world, right?
Yeah, I just played that game the other day with Ellie.
Fun.
I won.
Yeah.
I won. I loved it that, if you've ever played shoots and ladders, how it's kind of a luck of a draw. It's like I spun the number and then I went all the way up and then I crapped back down again.
Yeah, because it happens.
It happens. This is life.
Yeah,
this is resiliency. I mean, so right before Steve and I were in the green room, I was sharing with him about how I got rejected and praised all in the same day. And I'm like, that's what happens. You just got to be like, okay, I'm done. Moving on. Next opportunity. Next one.
Yeah. And it's kind of like children don't know rejection until we teach them rejection. And I started watching this series. I know it's 2-3 years old, but I don't take a lot of time and watch television. But it's Amazon, or I think it was Amazon, maybe it was Netflix, but called Education Inc. You ever heard of it?
I haven't, but that sounds interesting.
Three-part series on Education Inc. And here was the premise, that almost every other industry in the world has had major global technological advance. And the premise of Education Inc. was the last major global education technological advance was the chalkboard. Like we're going back 200 years, right? And since then, education has not been this global advance. It's just way out of whack all around the world. And it goes on and it talks about that. And I think the reason why the play state is so useful, so that when you hear great news that you're going to speak today, which congratulations, and then not so great news that somebody else said, sorry, you didn't make it. A kid hears all that and says, okay, next, again, can I do something else?
Yeah.
Because it's an experiment, right? And here's where it went sideways with modern education. And I'm not an educator by trade. My degree was not in education, but my study has taught me one thing. The last course I ever took in college, philosophy of education, the same guy who gave me freshman orientation, he was a German fellow. He'd say, you stupid freshman. And in our very German. And in our senior year, he said, now you're going to be angry at me. You're going to wish I told you this in your first class, but the truth is you never would have got it. He said, education isn't about what you remember. It's about having the tools to find what you don't know. Like, what the heck did I spend the last 4 years doing? Right. So it's really useful. But here's where we go wrong. Go way back to the Renaissance and the Reformation. We came out of the Dark Ages and we had all of a sudden these institutions in Europe and then and here in America and then in Asia, these gigantic Brobdingnagian concepts, Harvard, Oxford. Who the bleep cares? Because the reality is all it did was to teach us how to have correct answers, and it totally suppressed the concept of curious questions. So all our life we're fighting to be happy or fighting to be right. And it's way easier to be happy, and I may miss most of the questions on the test. Now, I happen to have a good GPA in school, but what did that do for me now? I love what Gary Vee says. If anybody was going to think about college today, unless it's a skill, sayonara. Take that money, don't go into debt, and get lots of passport stamps and see how the damn world lives, and you'll be really valuable.
Woo! Right? That's what I want to hear.
Yeah.
It is kind of the school of thought. Like my mom, baby boomer, she's like, your kids are going to college. And I said, okay, I get it, but I don't want them to go into debt. I'd rather them have the life experience. I'd rather them intern and figure out if this is what they want and not want. And that's the beauty of the internship. Like, take the real world experience, figure out if you really want to do that. I mean, my story, Steve. I wanted to be Connie Chung. And then when I got to that point, I was like, I don't want to be Connie Chung.
Now you're kissing Marie with this Cool cartoon opening. Man,
Yeah, doing my own
someday,
live at 4:45,
yes,
not at 10 p.m. or 5 a.m.
yes. Like someday I want to like be your co-host when you have your talk all around the world on Sirius Satellite Radio, because I'll
Hey, we'll
follow
put
you
that out
anywhere. You're
there.
the cartoon character of amazing proportion, for sure.
Yeah, I'll put that, and I love that animated cartoon that I put because it is a fun side of me. It is, I mean, here
Mhm.
we are, we're talking about fun and play, and sometimes it is too serious. Life's too serious. Like we need to
Well,
loosen up a little bit.
no doubt. And watch this. I've from day to day, I pop on, listen to your shows, chime in. I find it interesting. Now, there's no judgment, but I find it interesting that whether we've just missed people today or this is such an out of wavelength thought that they don't know how to comment. It's one or the other. Maybe everybody's busy making dinner, or maybe we've had some viewers and they're like, what are you guys talking about? That's okay. They said it was crazy 7 years ago, but you'll get it eventually. Like literally, if a workplace is going to succeed going forward, they're going to have to make some changes. I think I told you once, I'll leave the company off the books because it's a public company and I had a contract with them. But I had the opportunity to coach for almost a year, the executive vice president of one of the largest companies in the world. And I will tell you that $42 billion in net profits last year, they're huge, right? And I'll also tell you that the fundamental premise of the industry they're in, to some degree, is about what I'd call play. And we'll leave it there because I don't want to say anything else. But I'll tell you this. They were so concerned about investor relations with the public perception of their company that when the person I was coaching said, we need to bring this to the whole company, I said, well, I can't coach, 50, 60,000 people around the world. No. Like maybe you could come be our chief cultural officer, or maybe we could at least explore getting them one. And, we had some very loose conversations around this, but in the end, they had a CEO switch, and shortly thereafter, this individual resigned their very, coveted position in the company as a VP. And in the end, what they said is, we're going to have to fix our own business because we'd hate for the world to think that there was something wrong here. And like when the dollar and the profit margin becomes more important than the people, it's game over. And unfortunately, most companies today, at least in America, are run by old, white, rich men. And that is an injustice in and of itself. Companies should be run by diversity, by multinational, by gender neutral, right? Like it shouldn't be this typical male dominated white viewpoint. And I think I've clearly given my perspective about the need for diversity when I make this statement. But more importantly than that, the old white man doesn't generally understand much about this premise. How do we relate to young people? They don't even care. Like this company didn't do exit interviews for their senior management. Think about that. One of the world's largest companies. And when you leave and you're senior management, here's your compensation. See ya. No, how come you're leaving? No seeking to understand. I was, and to this day, still remain baffled by that. Guess what? Millennials, pardon my French, you're not going to have anything to do with that shit. They're going to say, see you, and go become the competition. They really are.
Absolutely. Well, I did.
Yeah. And you are great at it.
I worked for a company. Like I didn't last very long. And I'm just going to give some shout outs. I know Nick Siegel was joining us on Facebook, and we have Chad Phillips who said he loves this stuff. He's like, I love this so far. Thank you. So yeah, but I think you're right. Like people are just listening in and tuning into the conversation, and maybe they're nodding their head like I am, but you're right. I think that when I first started in working with ad agencies, Steve, I was like, who are these people? They're not listening to their employees. The culture is crap. And there's no open door policy. They're not taking any ideas. And I was like, I am literally on a sinking ship. Like, this is not good. Like, this is great. I'm going to get as much experience as I can. And then I was like, I'm doing my own thing. Like, I can do
So
this.
good, right? And it's funny you bring that up because, like, I was just featured. I think it released a couple days ago. I remember seeing it, saying, "Oh yeah, that was me." But I was last month. I was asked to be on a podcast in Europe and about leadership, and they asked me what is the most critical aspect of leadership going forward. And it is what you didn't get. It is what I didn't get. It's why we are who we are today. It's others learning how to listen, let go, and let others lead. Like, I mean, that's really great leadership today, because like the message of collaboration is far more important today than competition, because as long as this world of a pandemic still exists, it's like put this massive spotlight on human deficiency, right? And imbalance. And the millennials are not going to let that go. Within the next 5 to 7 years, they will represent close to 75% of the global world's workforce. And you think they're going to care about 401ks and 9 to 5? Hell no. They want, flex work weeks. They want
freedom.
Work from home. They want freedom. Don't match my 401k. Send me to Coachella for the music festival, right? I mean, me too, by the way. I'd like that too. But so you get the idea, right?
Give me the incentive, the perks of working for the job.
Of experience, and give me a sense of community, and that what we're doing really makes a difference. It's not just about cash in our pockets. No.
So. And I think if anything, I mean, I know for me personally, this COVID has taught me about, I want to get rid of my house, Steve. I want to do the RV life. I want to live out of my suitcase. I'm tired of cleaning my floor. Like,
it's so amazing you say that. I told someone the other day, because again, I'm here in Arizona, and I'm actually dog sitting for a friend. And then for about the next month, and after 14 months of being here, and I'll be back after the first of the year, but I'm going to go back home for a little while in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And but I told someone the other day, the thing I love about my life is that it's literally in the closet over there and wherever I go. Like I sold my vehicle in Hawaii when I knew I was going to be here a while, and so I'm now shopping for another one because I'm getting ready to go up the coast and see some friends, and then back down before Thanksgiving, and then back to Hawaii. But life is way simpler when we have less attachments. And when we have less attachments, we experience more. Going back to kids and play, right? If my toy box is so full that I can't pick because I'm stuck, then there's too much there. So in one respect, toys are a beautiful analogy of how to get back to play states. And in another respect, the old expression, the only difference between men and boys is the size of their toys. They can be a real distraction, like, because especially that's true with women as well. Maybe it's shoes and purses, and for guys it's ATVs and golf clubs. I don't know, watches, right? Whatever. But like you can see it, especially in a metropolitan area like Phoenix, where there's such a stereotype on kind of keeping up with the Joneses, right?
Yeah,
I'm like, keep up with the Joneses. I got 3 pairs of board shorts, some slippers in the other room, a couple Hawaiian shirts, and some jeans, and my life is simple and fun.
So the other day, I'll just share this quick story as we wrap it up, but I have bins, like big bins, Steve, of purses. Like I probably have about 50 purses, and my shelf couldn't hold it, so they all toppled on the ground, like in my closet. And I'm like,
that might be a sign.
Why needs this many purses? And I am not I have to go buy like the most expensive purse. It's got to have the emblem and all that. Like, I'm totally cool with my Ross spine that has 3 purses in one.
Well, I know we're coming to an end, because I know you got to go cook dinner, and but I hope we can do this again soon. But I'll give you this thought. I was just watching a documentary on some of the world's most dangerous jobs. And one of which is actually harvesting almonds in the South America. And I had no idea, but almonds come in like this coconut shaped shell. You crack it open. There's a whole bunch of them. And now listen to this. People are dealing with a carpeted jungle with tarantulas, scorpions, and vipers, right? One of the most dangerous types of snakes there are. And they're harvesting these things for 1/1000th of what they're sold for.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
I eat almonds with a whole different perspective, just like you're probably looking at your purses.
I
With a whole
just ate
different
my
perspective,
blue
right?
diamond almonds on the way to pick up my son.
Yeah, same here. Mine are wasabi and soy, right? But like when I think about that, this is what I invoke all of your listeners and anywhere I go to do. Like, let's just take a breath. Everything's going to be okay. Yes, the US has got a little bit of a shit show politically. Yes, the
Right.
world has a pandemic. Yes, yes, and yes. And guess what else? I still can play.
Yeah. See, you can control it. What
That's
you
right.
want to
That's
do.
right. That's right.
I want to give a big shout out to Bruce, the guy in the blue shirt, my good friend on LinkedIn. But he has a comment up here as we were talking about minimalization. And then he was joking. He's like, 50 purses, really, Tish? I
That's
don't
a
even know.
great
They all just
comment.
like tumbled and it broke the container. Like it was just a
Well,
mess.
you
I
could
think that
sell
was
them
my
all and get
sign.
your modified newish van.
I know.
That's a great comment.
Yeah, I'm meeting
Yeah.
so many people that they're like, I'm Airstreaming it. I sold the house. I'm small, tiny housing it. And I was like, absolutely. Like, I don't want all this stuff. I don't.
I was looking at a Jeep the other day because I'm either going to get a Jeep, 4-door Jeep, or an FJ Cruiser. And when I stumbled across this little like camper for two that's a trailer. And on the outside, there's this little pop-up kitchen. And the inside, there's just enough room to sleep. And then you go use Mother Nature or wherever to use the restroom and take a shower. But I was like, ooh, that's pretty darn cool. I could put that on the beach in Hawaii and maybe just keep subleasing my place.
There you go.
Right?
I know. See all of this, using your imagination and doing more play and not being so serious. And
right.
yeah, this is what we need. This is what we need. And ultimately, Steve, you know this. You're a happy guy. Bruce is a happy guy. People who are listening, you can wake up happy. You can decide if you want to be happy during the day.
I totally agree. Totally agree. Have you ever chanted or used sage, burnt sage?
I haven't, no.
Okay, but you've heard people chant.
Oh,
right?
yeah, I have.
So like Tibetan monks are who you think of chanting, but chanting's really good for everyone. So this wonderful lady, a shout out to Coach Tori Gordon, who's going to be doing some work with us. She makes like things that even feel sad and depressing, fun and happy. So she had some sage and she's bouncing around. I'm not getting to get depression. I'm not going to get depression. Just doing this little dance. That's how I met her. I was like, that's hilarious, right? We have to take life so much more lightly, right? I mean, we only get this thing once as best we know. Let's enjoy all of it, right?
Right. Oh, I'm there with you.
Sure.
You know me. Like, that's why you and I get along so well. Even on my hot mess days, I'm like, okay.
You're the best, Tish Marie. I love you. You're awesome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right, Steve. Well, we're going to wrap it up in just a minute. Is there anything you want to leave the audience with, a website or a tool or some resource?
I'd simply say this. If people want to talk to me, just, hit me up right down below. I'll direct message you. But I would say this, if you are in the world of business, a lot of people seeing this through Facebook and LinkedIn, but if you're in the world of business and you know for a fact that your workplace is not happy and it bothers you, then we should have a conversation, because whoever runs that workplace is the people I want to be having conversations with most. Now, some of those lead into business and some are just conversations, but I just want to start a conversation because we can really help. We do some really unique and amazing things. And someday soon, the whole world's going to know us. Imagine that.
Imagine that. All right. Steve Rix with Imagine That.
Aloha.
Today, talking about how play saves the day.
Always.
And yes, Bruce, thanks for being on with us. He even wrote, yes, hot mess TMP. I may be switching my tagline. Hey, I don't care. Like,
no,
whatever.
You are a touch of authentic and a whole bunch of badass. I know I mixed it up, but it's the best.
All right. Well, thanks everybody again for tuning in to the live or the replay. And if you were like, I don't know if I can ask Steve that question, ask Steve the question. Steve is so well versed. He's had so many different experiences. I mean, he even shared some of being vulnerable of, where he's been. So great entrepreneur. Ask him. He's a coach and all of that. So make sure you connect with him on LinkedIn, Steve Rix, as well. And yeah, thank you, Steve. And I know I know we'll be on that Sirius XM radio show
I do
sometime
too.
soon.
I can feel it coming.
Good energy.
The world's not going to know what to do with us, but we're going to know what to do with them. It'll be fun.
We will. We will. All right.
Much aloha.
All right. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you back next Tuesday for another Tisha Talks Live at 4:45. Bye.
Bye-bye.